I'm Pat McAfee, and I can't wait to go across the pond to listen to Across the Pod, fresh out of Wales. Special stuff. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, I was joined by Ollie Kent as we play Start Bench Cut with 33 quarterbacks in the NFL. I look at where one quarterback goes from here, but I feel like it's almost a bit stagnated in recent times. And Ollie questions Brock Purdy.
The general consensus is that, he's got the Avengers around him.
Hope you all enjoy. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, and we are bringing back an old favourite on the show. We've done it the last 2 years. We are doing a start bench trade episode with NFL quarterbacks. With me today, we've got a returning guest who has been on the last 2 years of this episode. Back on the show is Ollie Kent. Ollie, good to have you back on. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's been good. It's been a while.
Yeah, I can't think when you last came on. I can't think whether it was during the season or whether it was in the Cardinal season preview.
I think it was the preview. Yeah, I think it was the preview. What a preview.
Oh my god. And also we haven't planned it yet, but I'm looking to get you back on for that episode once again. And I think me and you combined, both Dolphins fan and Cardinals fan, is going to be
might need a drink for that one, yeah.
Well, I think we might be the top two picks in the draft. I genuinely think the top two draft picks might be, or the top three might be Cardinals, Dolphins, Jets in some sort of order.
Yeah.
I think, it's tough, but no, good to have you on. And yeah, let's get on to the episode. So before we do carry on the episode, we are, of course, brought to you by Fantasy Game Day app. You can use code Andy5 at checkout for money back off your first paid lineup. And also, let's take a trip down memory lane for On This Day. On this day, on June 15th in 1994, the New York Giants cut Super Bowl 21 MVP quarterback Phil Simms after 15 years with the team, and the likes of Jake Locker, Jay Ajayi, Ty Spears and Cooper Kupp were all born. Yeah, there we are. So yeah, usual process. We've got a wheel of names. Now, last year I attempted to try and screen record it whilst you were recording the episode, but it got lost halfway through. So you won't see that this year. You'll just have to trust that we've got the names correct. We've got 33 starting quarterbacks, which makes it interesting. All 32 starting quarterbacks. We will add another name just to make it all a lot of threes. So I think we can do what we'll try and choose now who we want as our 33rd quarterback. But we've got, the usual standards, but the usual candidates. But the ones that I had to sort of decide between, I picked Kirk Cousins over Mendoza just because I think he'll start in week one. Also, I picked Shadir Sanders over Deshaun Watson for similar reasons. And then elsewhere, I picked Michael Penix Jr. over Tua because, firstly, I think he'll start, but also I don't think I want to mention Tua much more times in my life. And then the Vikings, I picked Kyler Murray over McCarthy, but I'm tempted to put him in as our 33rd because I do think that might be the most split decision as to the quarterback rooms, as to who starts. Do you agree, Ollie, or is there anyone else you think we could add as our 33rd quarterback to make it 11 lots of 3?
Carson Beck. No, I'm joking. No, I think Kyler's probably the best shout there. I think you're probably best going for Mendoza over McCarthy. I think that's probably a closer decision than the Viking situation.
That's interesting because I had so much faith in McCarthy, I really did, but kind of more is happening. I'm kind of thinking I don't think he's got much of a future there. And I think Kyler's like a no-brainer for them because he's cheap and obviously more than anyone else being a Cardinals fan. He's got the potential to ball out. So I think that could be, you think about comeback player of the year, I think it could be a massive candidate to win that award.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think as well, Kellen, they've got a good situation there, actually. If you really think about where play Kyler for a year, he's a bridge. He's probably obviously looking to have a really good season and earn a bigger contract elsewhere, a la sort of Sam Darnold did the previous year. You sit JJ, no pressure on him. You know, he can actually start to get, you know, experience under his feet and stuff. And then go out there, see what you've got with JJ the year after. If he's a complete flop, then just bring someone in, you know, but as a long-term option, you know, draft someone or bring in a long-term opportunity, and kind of really is the ultimate bridge for them at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing as what Baker was in Tampa and what Sam Darnold was in Seattle, not Seattle, in Minnesota. The fact that it's risk-free, it's a cheap deal, it's a short-term deal, doesn't work out, that's fine, we'll see you later. But, you know, there's a real upside. I think there's no real, it's kind of a win-win situation for the Vikings, because they're either, he's either going to work or they're going to save money and, you know, let him go. So, it's interesting, but thankfully not our problem. Although saying that, I think they'll be a better team than our teams will be. I reckon they'll probably have more wins than we'll have combined between the Dolphins and Cardinals in 2020.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But you never know. No one would have sat here and said the Seahawks would win the Super Bowl. No one would have said the Vikings would be chasing that number 1 seed in the final week the season before. So, you never know. We've seen crazier things happen. So, right, let's go on to our first lot of quarterbacks. Let's see who we get. So first up we have, it looks like we got a big hitter straight away. We've got Josh Allen is the first quarterback off the board. We've got Josh Allen. Okay. Jacoby Brissett is our next quarterback. So real contrast of players there. And our final one is... we've got, this one might be an easy one, but we've got Baker Mayfield. So in our first start bench trade, we've got Josh Allen, Jacoby Brissett, and Baker Mayfield. I feel like this might be pretty easy. Do you agree, Ollie?
I wouldn't even trade Jacoby. I would just cut him. Like the situation we've got going on with him at the moment is absolutely ridiculous. I hate that man. But yeah, I think obviously, you know, Josh Allen, the way he's playing at the moment, he's obviously going to be the starter there. But I will say that, you know, the gap between like him and someone like Baker isn't as big as I think a lot of people probably make out, or certainly, you know, a lot of people's perception of Baker is still that Cleveland Baker, or, you know, even that Panthers and Rams stint that he had. But, you know, within Tampa, he's sort of solidified himself as, I would say, that mid to upper tier of QB. You know, if you had to position him somewhere in the league, I wouldn't put him any lower than sort of maybe like 15, 14, realistically.
Yeah, it's a weird one with Baker, because we saw last season he was an MVP frontrunner in the first 6 weeks, and I think we've all loved the story of how he's overcome his difficulties. But I feel like it's almost a bit stagnated in recent times. I feel like he's done great in terms of being, you know, that $1.25 million deal when he first came to Tampa, overcoming the disappointment in Carolina and, you know, and all that stuff. But I feel like we're at a point now where he's got to that point where he's now seen as a good quarterback, a franchise quarterback. But is he going to make that next step to go from solid starter, franchise QB, to then being a Super Bowl champion? I don't know. I mean, we've seen lesser quarterbacks win Super Bowls, but I don't know whether he has got that next step to go from where he is now, you know, 10-11 win season, wild card round appearance, to then taking them to a conference championship and further, especially in a conference that I think is a lot stronger than the AFC.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think though as well, like you look at the NFC South and it's such an easy division in comparison to so many of these other divisions, you know, and it's you don't really necessarily give Tampa that pat on the back just for making it to the wild card round, you know, like it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you're expected to do that within that division, you know. I think you're right, like it's that deep playoff run. Do they have that in that locker? I think the only thing I will say about Tampa is two things really. Is as an organization, it's incredibly well run. You know, what was it, 5-6 years ago now with Brady, where they won the Super Bowl. Like they know how to do it. They know how to operate as a good team. They know how to manage players, personnel, things like that. I just wonder if, you know, Todd Bowles has sort of like tapped out at his peak. You know, I don't know if he is a Super Bowl winning head coach essentially. as much as is Baker a Super Bowl winning QB? We don't know, but I think it's more a case of that Bowles question for me than Baker.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Bowles has done I think, a good job. He's provided stability, but I think it's that same thing as like Mike McCarthy, that kind of steady 10 wins. Maybe you get a wild card round win here and there, but again, it's that same thing as Baker. Is Todd Bowles the man that's going to get them from that point to take it? But that is, I saw a great talking point. That is that almost the worst place to be as a sports fan, certainly in American sports, is if you
with the draft system for 100%, you just caught in that limbo. I mean, it's tough. Like, no one buys into the idea of tanking, like, especially in the league. Obviously, everyone's trying to get paid. Everyone, people can't afford to, right? Okay, but like, it's a tough spot to be in. If you're picking middle round every year on year, you've got to be very good at drafting, right? Okay, and you got to have a certain spark in terms of, like the Rams with McVay, right? Okay, they always pick that back end, right? Okay, but they've got great talent, and then the coaching is just continuously on and on and on and on. I just don't know if Tampa has that.
Yeah, I mean, they did smash out the park with Ruben Bain Jr. That could be one of the steals of the draft. Maybe the steal of the draft if it goes the way we think it's going to go. But yeah, I just think that, at least our 2 seasons we're going to have as fans, me and you, it's going to be rough, but you got that sort of in your back of your mind thinking, right, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You've got, whether it is for yourselves or, whether it's going to be Jeremiah Smith or whether it's going to be a franchise quarterback, Arch Manning, whoever it's going to be, you kind of think, if you're winning 2 or 3 games in the season, you have that draft to look forward to, you've got your future there. But, if you are picking, like you said, you've got to pick really well. If you're picking 17th overall in the draft, you've got to really find some studs. And people have gone in that position and been good, but it's all about drafting, and it's just a tough position to be in when you're in that position. But I think it's a consensus: Allen start, Baker bench, and Brissett cut.
Well, shot into the sun, ideally, but yeah.
I mean, I actually forgot. Actually, it has been called start, bench, cut the last 2 years. So it is. This will be the episode name rather than start, bench, trade. And Brissett, we talked off camera. You'll be seeing him play in person this year in Arizona around Christmas time.
Well, I don't know about around that time of year. Hopefully, it'll be someone else. But no, we will be going to see them. But I don't even know if he'll be there week 1. I mean, he has to turn up next Tuesday, mandatory. Otherwise, he starts getting docked pay. But it's just such a fiasco in a division that is just an absolute monster. And we're just at the end of it, meddling around with bloody Kobe Brissett is ridiculous.
It's crazy. I mean, I remember his time in the Dolphins coming in for an injured tour in 2022, and it was just awful. I found it really hard to watch. Like, I've never been Tua's biggest fan, but I found it really, really hard to watch Brissett. It was just so hard, and I viewed him. I forget where he was before. Maybe it was New England before where he was. But I remember thinking, oh, he's not too bad. Get him in. But he was just so bad.
He's just a backup QB, right? Okay. If you are having to play him for more than 4 games a season, you're in for a disaster, right? Okay. The hope is that you play him for like 2 games while your guy's out, your actual guy's out, and if you can win one of those games, great success, right? But and that's the crazy thing about the situation with the Cardinals at the moment is he won 1 game in 12 starts, 1 game, right? And he's asking for the starting job and starter money and stuff, and it's just insane. Like, there's no leverage there. But yeah, man, it's always a tough watch. Yeah.
Right, let's go on to our next lot of 3 quarterbacks. So spin the wheel. Who are we getting first? We had a big hitter last time. Oh, we've got the man of the moment. Some would say Jackson Dart is our first player. Made news in recent times, maybe not for the most conventional reasons. Let's see who we get second. Okay, we've got Brock Purdy. This should be interesting. And then finally, our last quarterback. Let's spin the wheel. Who are we going to get? Along with Jackson Dart and Brock Purdy, we have always between two AFC South quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is our last quarterback. So we have
That's a tough one.
Trevor Lawrence and Jackson Dart. That is quite a tough one. That is a tough one. Ollie,
I think the thing with all of them is it's their current trends, right? Okay, if we'd done this a year ago, it'd have been dead easy, right? You'd have said it was obviously Brock, and then it was Trevor, and then it was Jackson, right? Okay. And in the last 17 games or so, there's been so much movement in terms of where they're trending, how they finish the season, that kind of stuff. I just think it's really tough. I feel like Trevor probably had his best year in the league, I think you could argue. Even though, again, it was still ups and downs, but he had his best year in the league. I've never been particularly high on Brock anyway, and I know there's probably slight bias there, but I think the general consensus is that, he's got the Avengers around him, and Shanahan is the OC, right? Okay. Could you argue that anyone who had, at the time, it was Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey, anyone who had those weapons, plus the play calling, sleepwalking into positive wins, you're at least 500 on the record. So I don't know. And I think Jackson Dart shows some good promise. I think he's obviously still quite young. I mean, naturally for me, it's probably going to have to be cut Jackson based on what the other guys have already accomplished in the league and where he's at. I would probably go with start Trevor and bench Brock, though.
Oh my goodness, it's really tough. I agree with you. I do think the Dart one is the easy one. I think you cut Dart because I think he had a great rookie year, but I kind of think the same thing as him and Scatterboo is that the hits they're taking, are they going to be there in 3 years?
Yeah, that's true.
Scatterboo really worries me in terms of long term. I think this year, short term, I think could be great, and I do think they shouldn't be slept on to win that NFC East. I think with what's going on in Philly and Dallas, I think with John Harbaugh there, they could be one of those worst to first teams in their division. But I worry about what's happening in 4 or 5 years' time. I think Scatterboo especially, but I think Dart as well. He needs to reduce the hits he takes, and I think there's there's slight one season wonder, but it's not even been a one season wonder. It's been a half season wonder, you could argue.
Exactly.
And I don't know whether I think I need to see a lot more of him to even consider him for the bench. So yeah, he for me is a cut. And I think Brock and Trevor are very similar. I think in terms of we will be doing a 1 to 32 quarterback ranking episode again with Sam Morse during this month. And I don't think they'll be far apart in our top 32s, but I'm going to give the edge to Brock just because I feel bad saying this because it's a team game, but I've just seen Brock do it in bigger moments than Trevor Lawrence. I've seen Lawrence have 2 playoff games, or 3 playoff games, and one of them, they had to come back, but I think that might be more on the issues of the Chargers more than maybe because Lawrence had 4 picks in that first half. And against the Bills, he did a good job, but not quite enough. But I've seen Brock Purdy have multiple comebacks and have plays with his feet and kind of extend plays himself and kind of guide that team towards victories and take them to a Super Bowl. So I think it feels bad. I think that it's very close, but I think just because of what he's done in the postseason, which I know is harsh because I think Dan Marino is better than Eli Manning, but Eli Manning's done more in the postseason. So it's hard for me to truly judge it on postseason, but I just think when it's that close in talent, I think I'm going to have to go with potentially that just to edge Brock over Trevor Lawrence. But someone tells me you have Lawrence over Brock, I'm not against that because I think it is really close between them two.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just it's just that trending thing, right? One is trending on the up and one is probably trending on the down. Brock is trending down from a higher spot, but I think it's probably just closer than where it is. And maybe I'm more of a futurist and I look towards how I think they'll do this year as opposed to what they've necessarily accomplished. But, that just is the case for me. I think that, this time next year, there's probably a better conversation with where Trevor is as opposed to where Brock is.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if what happened in 2025 happens in 2026, I think it could put Lawrence over Brock, because I think Brock obviously had his injury problems, but he wasn't anywhere near as good in 2025, and you could argue 2024 as well. I think, yeah, for now, I think doing this in a year's time, if we do this in a year's time, and these things have happened, and the same kind of seasons have happened, then yeah, it might be a different story if they come up again. But we'll move on to our next 3 quarterbacks. So we've had so far 6 out of the 33, and our first one is, it was close then between the MVP and the Super Bowl champion. We've got Matthew Stafford first up off the board, of course, reigning MVP. We got another big hitter, Joe Burrow. So you got the two quarterbacks that played each other in Super Bowl 56. And I think, if I'm right, I think we had these 2 quarterbacks in the same last year. I think they were both in the same thing last year. I remember us talking about Super Bowl 56 and who beat who. So yeah, interestingly, come up again. Let's get on to the final one. We have Shadur Sanders. Matthew Stafford, Shadur Sanders, and Joe Burrow. I think easy one.
I think Shadur probably thinks he's the starter out of those 3, which is delusional. No, obviously it's cut Shadur. I mean, I don't think it's unrealistic for him to be cut in the next couple of years anyway. I don't think he'll get his. Obviously, with not being a first rounder, they lose that 5th-year option on him. So he's only got 2 more years, and they have to make a decision on extending or not. I get it. There's so many people with the name, and he's been put in bad situations. Blah blah blah. Just don't think he's that good anyway, right? Like this is the thing for me is this is a league, right, that will do anything to win, right? Okay, like. Josh Jacobs is still practicing with the Packers. Yeah. Rashee Rice is still practicing with the Chiefs. Right. Okay. Do not think that just because some people don't like his attitude or whatever, they're going to turn around and say, nah, not for us. Right. Okay. The Texas Tech QB who's been done for betting and gambling on his own games at the college level and has had to go into the supplemental draft, right, is going to get picked up by a team, right? If Shadur was truly what he thinks he was, he'd have been taken in the first round. The league told you exactly what his talent level was, and it was the 5th round, right? And that's that for me. I think with the other 2, obviously Stafford is going to. They're obviously very close. I think the thing with Joe Burrow is obviously just the health thing, right? Like I'd kill to have a QB obviously like Joe Burrow in the desert, but if he only gets you 8 games a year, and then you've got to start Jacoby Brissett for the other 8, what's the point? Like, that is tough, unfortunately. I think probably an indictment of Cincinnati as an organization in general, right? That he is taking the hits that he's taking. This goes back to the whole, like, do you get Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and let him throw it X amount of times and get hit X amount of times, or do you take Penei Sewell and Joe Burrow's got a clean pocket, but there's no one to throw to? Goes back all the way there. So I don't know. I just think Cincinnati need to probably butt their ideas up on that O-line, and it's been far too long for them to have done it. And then Stafford is Stafford, unfortunately, in our division.
So who are you starting there? That's
it's got to be Stafford starting, and then Burrow's on the bench. I mean, Burrow's probably on the bench because he's torn something, and then Shadur's cut.
If this was start bench injured, I think Burrow would be a lot.
Oh, it'd be top spot on the injured one.
It's so tough because I think talent-wise, I think Burrow has the better talent, but then Stafford is the most recent MVP. He is durable. I don't remember him being injured that much in his career, certainly whilst with the Rams. But then
I just think the thing for me with Stafford is, like, he honestly, and I don't think he's that wild today, he's operating at like that Brady level of, like, he just sees the game in a different way than other people. Just understands it. What other guys take time to process, it just takes him nothing at all. Just absolute complete control of that offense paired with McVay. And like just dominant, right? And he's probably going to start seeing a bit of a drop off physically, just with the age and that kind of stuff. And he's always been like a real gunslinger, and that's probably going to wear away a little bit. But where he's at in terms of just like, you know, seeing the field, knowing where to go with the ball, it's just like it's different level.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, like you said before, I think the Burrow injury thing is not going to be down to him as much as the O-line and on the defense constantly having to, you know, give him having the ball back. So it's tough. Because obviously I've not done this method, but you know, Stafford's probably going to retire in 2 years. You get Burrow for longer, but right now, who will I want to start in a big moment? Probably Stafford. Even though Burrow has won these big games, I think if you get both these quarterbacks fully healthy, clean pocket, the same receivers, I think Burrow would flourish more than Stafford. I think Burrow is that talented, but I think
the thing is with that though, I hear your argument, but say you said you got 2 more years of Stafford, or you can get 5 more years of Burrow. I generally think in that 2 years, Stafford has a better chance of winning the Super Bowl for you than Burrow does in those 5.
But I think if Burrow had the Rams team and the coaching and the offensive line and the defense, I think Burrow would do just as well. I think, but I'm where he's had Jamar Chase, he's got T. Higgins, the best receiver group.
He hasn't got that defense either, or necessarily that O-line either. I do understand that.
Yeah, so that's where it's tough. I'm gonna have to make a decision. I have to really decide. I think durability-wise, I'm going to give it to Stafford, but it's so tough because I'm a massive fan of Burrow, and I would kill for him in Miami. Same with you.
I would kill for him as well. Yeah.
He's so likable. He's so cool. I used to dislike him at first, but he's so cool. I've never really had a Dolphins quarterback I've liked. I liked Fitzpatrick for his personality, but I never took to Tua, never took to Tannehill, and anyone else who started when Tua's been injured. But and Malik Willis, I think I liked him at Green Bay, but yeah, I think if I had Burrow at the Dolphins, my goodness, would I love him? But
I'd be in tears.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Right, let's go on to our next 3. We've had some big hitters, some big names so far, and we almost got Mahomes. Then we've got Bo Nix as our first quarterback off the board. You can probably guess how I've kind of ordered these quarterbacks by division because you keep getting division rivals come up against each other. Okay, we've got Bryce Young as our next quarterback. I think that could be interesting. And then finally, our final quarterback is going to be... We have Jordan Love. So we have Bryce Young and Jordan Love. Now, that's an interesting one. That is an interesting trio. Ollie, how are you seeing that?
I mean, right off the top, I'm going to say it's going to be Jordan Love start, Bo Nix bench, and Bryce Young cut. The big concern for me with Bo Nix is I don't know if he's got a functioning leg left. Like, if you've seen the pictures of it, it's outrageous. I think even then, like, I think Jordan Love has been playing it potentially as slither above what Bo Nix has anyway, right? I've never been a massive Bo Nix guy in general. I think obviously he's benefited a lot from having Sean Payton. They've obviously got Waddle there now as well, so that'd be interesting. Good run game. That defense is ridiculous, and that O-line is ridiculous as well. But I think the thing is, like with someone like a Bo Nix, is like, do you see him as a guy that can win you a Super Bowl? And I just don't see that. I could see someone like Jordan Love lifting a Super Bowl. I think health is obviously his big thing coming off the injury, which is the reason obviously why Malik Willis started so much. I think Bryce Young's an interesting case. Like, he looked really promising towards the end of the year last year, right? Like those, and it's an interesting one because they obviously they sat him for a couple of games, right? Okay, non-injury related. They just said, just going to bench you, and he could have spiraled off of that and gone absolutely, ballistic over it and said, this isn't right. How should we be treated? And a certain Browns QB probably would have done that. But he's come back and embedded straight back into it and playing really well, to be fair, towards the back end of it. So it's an interesting one. But yeah, I've got a mate who's a Denver fan as well. He probably would hate not having Bo Nix as the starter, but yeah, it's going to be Jordan Love for me.
Yeah, Bryce Young is interesting because let's not forget he almost beat the Rams and Stafford in the playoffs.
They had a great back end of the year.
Oh, it was incredible, and I think I've always loved McVay. I was really wanting them to go far in the playoffs, but I was watching that game thinking, "Go on, Bryce! It would have been amazing." So in terms of the shock factor, it was one of the easiest ones to call pre-game prediction-wise. Everyone was going for the Rams. Yeah. That'd have been one of the biggest shocks, I think, certainly of the season just gone. But I just think again, I think Love starts for me. I think he's a bit vanilla. I think he's going to be a victim of who the two quarterbacks before him were. I think people are going to be expecting him to have the same trajectory. I think he's a bit vanilla. I don't know whether he is. I don't know whether I've seen enough to make him think he's like top 5, top 10 QB. But I think he's done a lot more in his career than Nick's has so far. I think Nick's had a great year last year and a great end to the season before. But I think Love's got more tape on him, more of a better resume. And I think Bryce Young, if this was next year, I think Bryce Young carries on what he did in the last few weeks of the season. I do think, then we talk about Young. But also, we mentioned the NFC South before being a weak division. They only got into the playoffs because the Buccaneers completely collapsed. And I think, a bit of fortune getting there. But either way, great performance from him. But I just think, hasn't done quite enough yet to be worthy of being a bench or start. But yeah, I think it might be the weakest 3 quarterbacks we get. The most vanilla or the most meh set of 3 quarterbacks we'll get today. I think we've had Stafford and Burrow, we've had Trevor Lawrence, Jackson Dart in one, we've had Josh Allen in one, Baker Mayfield. It's a bit of a bland 3, but yeah, it's how it rolls sometimes.
No, I agree. I do think that Nix is probably more of a benefactor of Peyton than Love is of LaFleur, if that makes sense. And then, like you said, like with Young, that back end of the season, if they can carry that into the next year, and again, in what we've said is potentially a weaker division in the NFC South, wouldn't be shocked to see them back in the playoffs.
I agree. How much do you think Bo Nix will look back on that injury? You think about he obviously missed the AFC Championship. The Patriots weren't great in that game.
No, it was a horrible game.
Oh, it was all. I quite enjoyed it in a way. It was like low scoring. It was defensive.
Snow comes in.
Yeah, that was fun. But do you think Nix looked back thinking, if I stayed healthy, that might be my best chance to make a Super Bowl? Because I do believe if Nix hadn't got injured, I think they might have beaten the Patriots that day. I don't know whether he'll get a better chance. I don't think he'll get a better chance than that to make a Super Bowl, personally.
I agree. But I do think that the Seahawks would have still beaten the ever-living out of them in the Super Bowl, to be fair, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that Rams-Seahawks game felt like the Super
Unreal.
Bowl.
You watched, and that was on first as well. So you watched that one, and then you watched the... it was just like night and day.
Oh, unbelievable. It's like a few years ago, you had Eagles-Niners, Brock Purdy's injury, you had McCaffrey playing quarterback, and thankfully that was first, and then we could have the Bengals Chiefs on after that, which was, again, great game.
Yeah, really good game.
Poor ending because of the refereeing, but we'll move on because that is a topic we could talk about all day. Let's find our next 3 quarterbacks. So first up, we have got Tyler Shuck, one of the best rookies of 2025. Who is next? Patrick Mahomes. There's a contrast of quarterbacks. So we've got Tyler Shuck, Patrick Mahomes. Who is going to be our 3rd quarterback? We have Malik Willis as our 3rd. So we have, in total, Tyler Shuck, Patrick Mahomes, and Malik Willis. Now, I think start's easy. I think it is Mahomes. I think that's a slam dunk. And I think I'll give the edge to Shuck because Malik Willis looked great, but it was a small sample size. Didn't do it in Tennessee. Only really has played in Green Bay in bits and drips and drabs. And I was really impressed with Tyler Shock's rookie year. Now, Malik Willis has been, I think, given an unfair position here because, he's gone from a well-coached team, Matt LaFleur, the coaching staff, better team in Green Bay than the Dolphins. He's going to a team now in the Dolphins that have got rid of Bradley Chubb, got rid of Tyreek Hill, got rid of Jalen Waddle, only really have A-Chain and some subpar receivers. And again, he looked good in Green Bay when he wasn't playing all the time. He looked good, and I'm hopefully he can be good, but I fear he's going to be, fed to the Sharks a little bit here in Miami to get a top pick next year and get Arch Manning. So, yeah, I'll give the edge to Shuck because he's played a full season and Malik Willis hasn't, but that's no fault of his. But that's tough. I feel bad on Malik Willis because he is, our quarterback. But yeah, I think he's just got a bit of a smaller sample size than Tyler Shuck.
Well, he should have come to the desert then if he was that upset about it. He should have signed with us instead, and he could have had Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, and then Jeremiah Love at the top of the draft. But that's his decision. I think you're right to a degree. Like obviously, Mahomes is going to be the top spot. I think the problem with Mahomes is very similar to Burrow, is just the injury stuff. I do start to wonder about Mahomes though, in terms of a lot of his best play is the improvisational stuff. The off the cuff stuff, and with an injury and getting older as well, like is he going to start losing that ability potentially? And does he really have to change his style of play and become like a more of a pocket passer kind of guy? How long has Andy Reid got left? This is probably Travis Kelce's last season. They've just lost, Rashee Rice essentially for however long the league deems it necessary or indeed the police. You look at all these things and you sort of say, are they going to get another shot? Because even if he comes back this year, do people see them over other AFC teams we've just spoken about? The Broncos, for example, is an emerging favourite. You've still got Chargers in that same division as well, which is tough. I just don't know for me personally. But obviously he's going to remain at the top just with his record and what he has done, what we know he can do. I think the case about the small sample size, I think the argument you could potentially make with someone like Willis is we have seen more of him just naturally being in the league when he was with the Titans and stuff. And that was probably very similar to what you got out of like a Tyler Shuck this year. What I will say is that even though it's a smaller sample size, you've seen a smaller sample size of better play from Malik Willis than you have from Tyler Shuck, who again, very similar to sort of like a Bryce Young in the terms of trending upwards, going in the right direction towards the end of the year. Can they roll it over into the next year? I think for me, it's Mahomes as a start, it's Willis as the bench, and it's probably cut Shuck still. But that's obviously much closer than, like you say, between the gap between Mahomes and Willis.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, with Mahomes as well, do you think about the situation where the same thing Brady had? He had an injury in 2008, season ending, and then had a 10-year gap between Super Bowls, and then he won a few more. Do you think there might be a situation where, albeit Mahomes won't have the luxury of having the same head coach as Brady had his whole career, but do you think that there'll be a chance where maybe there'll be a few years where he doesn't win it, and then they get a new, like they had they gone out and got new talent and they kind of rebuilt the team? Do you think maybe he could be that where could take a few years, but then it could be the case where they do go out and start winning again? Because I think personally he's that talented. I can't see him not making another Super Bowl. They got an easy schedule this year. I think this year, you look at it, it's a weaker conference. Maybe this year they could get in. Bills and Ravens, new coaches. I think the Ravens will win the AFC, but there's uncertainty around the new head coach there, same as Buffalo. They got a really easy schedule, so I think there's that potential of him to go back. But yeah, do you think maybe? Yeah, I think personally, do you think that he will win one again? Just maybe it might take 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
It's just so tough. I just think though, and again, like you referenced the Brady injury and him saying, but Brady's such a different guy in the sense of he's always been that pocket passer. And the problem with, and it's the same that will probably happen with you know, the likes, we saw it with Russell Wilson, for example, and it's probably the same thing that we'll see potentially someday with like Lamar Jackson, right? Is that what makes those guys special is what they can do, you know, off script and out the pocket and these amazing plays. And that requires just ridiculous athleticism. And unfortunately, injuries stack up, time goes on. You know, you mentioned the 10-year thing. Mahomes is not going to be doing the stuff that he was doing his first 5 years in 10 years' time, right? Okay, you know, the leaping stuff off the ground and behind the back part. Like, I just don't see it happening, right? And then you pair that with, you know, where the roster is at the moment. There's going to be a big break. I mean, there already has been obviously a bit of a break with injuries and stuff like that. But Kelsey's not what he was. I don't see like a really tasty, true number one wide receiver on that roster at the moment, right? Like Tyreek Hill was. Like, if they are going to go about it, the formula is going to have to change massively. I think the one thing that is really underestimated within KC though is that defense is like really impressive. Right, what Spags does over there is incredible. They are again. They've already lost cornerback. Chris Jones is probably on the back 2 years maybe of his career or something like that. Like, there's a couple of studs there that they're going to start losing as well, and so they're not going to win it this year. We've then spoken about some of the guys they're going to potentially drop off next year as well, right? That's going to take some serious turnaround in the next 2-3 years in order to get, you know, over the line there.
Do you think Mahomes could change his game? Because I remember when he first broke through, we saw a lot more of it, his deep arm. I remember seeing him, you know, and it kind of changed his game a little bit to sort of when he lost Tyreek Hill and stuff like that. But do you think maybe he could limit his scrambling plays in 10 years or so? But do you think because of how deep his arm has shown to be in the past, do you think that he could develop his game and change it so that he is more of a pocket passer and doesn't do less of the magic or the kind of scrambling plays, or maybe more sporadically?
I don't think it's a case of like he can't do it. Like, ultimately, you can't be in the QB in the league without being a pocket passer and being able to play within the pocket. Like, that's just a matter of fact, right? Okay, but it's about the fact that for me, he's a Super Bowl winning QB, and he's like, you know, this Hall of Fame level of QB because of what he does outside the pocket. If you remove that element of his game, he's probably just a very good starting QB within the pocket, right? And you look at some of the guys we've spoken about already in terms of Stafford, for example, right? He's an in-the-pocket guy, and he always has been, right? And then again, like to Brady, that's their game. So they don't have to adapt. And if they're already Hall of Fame and Super Bowl level QBs playing that style of play, well, that means they can extend those careers. They can have 20-year careers because they don't have to change their game. And if they're already doing it at a high level, they can continue to do it at a high level. Whereas someone like Mahomes, you're asking him to potentially remove that special aspect of his game because of being an athlete. And then also at the same time, elevate, not just can he do it, elevate that in the pocket kind of game. And I just think it's a very tough, you know, ordeal. And that's with the structure around him changing massively, you know, losing those Hall of Fame tight end, wide receiver, that kind of stuff is a lot to handle.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. I'm hoping that does happen because I like seeing different teams win. I've seen enough of the Chiefs this last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
But I do still love Mahomes. I can't deny it. But yeah, it's nice to see someone else winning it, as long as they aren't the Bills, Jets, or Patriots.
No, yeah, I mean, you're in a pretty tough division at the moment, aren't you? So Bills and New England, but
I mean, you had one of your division rivals win it in your other team.
Don't honestly, it's ridiculous.
I mean, that's got to be tough. I mean,
hell.
To have, we're recording this the same week as Myles Garrett moved from the Browns to the Rams. I mean, a division that already had 3 teams in the playoffs, already had the Super Bowl champions, already had next season's favourite before this trade went down. To now play Garrett twice a year, as a Cardinals fan, a team that many are predicting to have the first overall pick the following year, or at least the top 3 pick next year. How gutting was that for you? How heart-wrenching was that for you to see, oh God, we got to play him as well?
Well, I mean, the only good news is that we weren't expecting to win any of those games anyway. We just probably will lose them worse. So there is something to be said. And again, the only other good news is if Jacoby Brissett does decide to turn up, he can just get absolutely lamped 7 times a game by Myles Garrett. So happy days.
Fair. Right. Let's go on to our next three quarterbacks. Who is the first off the board? We have Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, of course, new head coach for him next year. Can he finally end this playoff hoodoo he's got over the making the Super Bowl? Next up, we have the cover athlete, this week's released athlete of this week's new released cover athlete for Madden. Caleb Williams is our next quarterback. So strong start for this one. I want someone on Caleb's level to make it a bit of a debate, because if it's going to be someone like Michael Penix, it might be a bit of a tough. And it's Kirk Cousins. So we've got Lamar Jackson, Caleb Williams, and Kirk Cousins. That for me is really easy. You start Lamar, you bench Caleb, and you cut Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I'm obviously going to agree with that. I think it's probably a different conversation. Like for me, I think Lamar got lucky to get one of his MVPs. To be fair, his first one for me was a bit lucky. I don't know if he necessarily deserved that one. I think the way that Caleb is trending, he could be another one of those young, exciting QBs in the league, and he'll probably have the Bears in those playoff discussions for a couple of years. I think obviously Ben Johnson, the impact there is massive. And this is the thing with the league. You can't underestimate coaching, but you just can't underestimate the importance of it. So, and you talk about obviously the changeover with Lamar over in Baltimore. I think, they struggled towards the end a little bit. And it's interesting because that division is ripe for the picking, if you really think about it. Cleveland is in turmoil at the moment. God knows what's going to happen with the Steelers this year, right? Led by 50-year-old Aaron Rodgers and McCarthy's back there and all that going on. And I just think, and then obviously the Bengals, with is Joe still healthy, all these kind of things. But again, it's not the strongest of divisions. Derrick Henry's getting up there in age as well, right? That defense is still lethal, obviously, which does help massively. But there's that bugbear for them to get over, which is the playoffs. And until they make it to sort of a conference championship and compete in that, it is what it is.
But I said it before, and I think this may change before we do our predictions in the summer, but I do believe with Minter coming in, I do believe the Ravens are a team that I think could win the AFC, because, like I said before, there's a bit of a uncertainty around a lot of the teams right now. That we mentioned the Chiefs, the Bills, like the Ravens, are getting a new head coach. But I feel like with Minter, the issue they had a lot of times with the Ravens when they were at their best with Lamar Jackson in his MVP years, the defense sometimes couldn't hold up. I mean, they had 2 games against the Bengals in 2024 where they won the games, albeit, but they conceded 30 odd points. And I think getting a defensive minded coach in, I think, will help that side of the ball. And I think sometimes as well, a fresh voice sometimes is what a team needs. I mean, Harbaugh did great for years, but it felt a bit stale, a bit like Tomlin the last few years with the Steelers. And I feel getting someone like him in a young, fresh mind, I think that could be a difference. And Minter did a great job in his last, I think it was the Chargers he was with, but I think I just think that, he's first-time head coach. That could go wrong, but at the same time, it could go right, and it could be the fresh voice the Ravens need. And I do think it's a weaker conference this year. I do think the NFC wins regardless of who makes it, unless there's a shock team that appears out of nowhere. I just feel like there was a bit like the Commanders in 2024, there was a lot of comeback wins, a lot of, I don't know. I just feel like it was great last year, and that throw against Rams was incredible. And I think you're right. I think the way he's going, the trajectory he's on, I think he saw what I think I loved watching last year. But it's only 1 year, and I do think there was a lot of comebacks late on. That can't happen every year. You can't keep getting that bit of fortune when it comes to comeback wins. I don't know. I think I expect him to have a good season, but there's that bit of me I'm thinking, is this going to be another one of those? I don't know. I have my reservations whether he can do it again. keep having these comeback wins. I don't think that's sustainable for an NFL team to keep having to come back. But I just think, it's. I just think with how that season went, I don't know whether it's sustainable having all those comeback wins.
No, I hear what you're saying. I think that defense probably was pretty good over in Chicago, and obviously like the addition of Ben Johnson. But then again, like the thing is though is this is where, because he's young, he's so young, is you can argue that, well, okay, he's making these crazy plays and that's his peak. You assume that his poor plays, his floor elevates. And so if he starts to remove those bad plays, like his biggest issue has been just staying in the pocket, right? He drifts and all that kind of stuff with, next to no pressure. If he just, removes the worst elements of his game, overall as a team, they're going to improve. And this is the thing with the league, is you're never only going up or down, right? You're never just going to stay the same realistically. And so you'll have people moving around you and stuff like that. And, you look at the division they're in, like the Lions had a bad year last year, but you could argue they're just trending down anyway. Packers, who knows, like if Jordan Love goes down again, who's stepping up? And so I think you just have to say to yourself, can he eliminate, the poor side of his game? And is that enough to carry them into the playoffs again this year?
Yeah, interesting. We'll find out what happens next year in the season. But yeah, interesting with Caleb. And of course, the Madden curse might be in play for this season.
Ridiculous stuff.
Right, let's go on to our next one. We got five rounds next of start bench cut. And the first up is the reigning AFC champion, Drake May, is the first off the board. He's actually rumored to be on the cover for a lot of the summer, but obviously Caleb was the one they picked. So next up we have your old boy, Kyler Murray, is our next guy up. So we got so far Drake May, Kyler Murray. Who is the last on the board? Let's spin the wheel. We're going to have CJ Stroud. So we have Drake May, Kyler Murray, and CJ Stroud. Ollie, as you are the Cardinals fan, Kyler Murray, I'll let you go first. How are you doing this one?
Yeah, I think you're going to start Drake, obviously, with what he did last year, and probably without that true number one wide receiver as well. Now that they've brought in Brown, it'd be interesting to see. Do they have a bit of a Super Bowl slump? Is the only other thing. They obviously got absolutely torn apart there, and the protection up front was just abysmal, realistically. But they've got a solid defense. Vrabel's a very good head coach, despite what he does off the field. He's a very sound head coach. So yeah, I think obviously he's proven himself, and he sort of arrived in the league. He wasn't bad in his first season, but there was obviously just not, the support around him, and then you give him that, and look where they've gone with it. Kyler is going to be the candidate for me. Obviously, CJ Stroud had a massively down year last year in comparison, and I think, to be fair, CJ Stroud has trended down every year since he had that sort of breakout rookie year. And you can't even say the case of look at the team around him, they're crumbling or whatever. It's a really good team over in Texas. That defense is absolutely ridiculous, the guys they've got there. And they've still added talent on the O as well. So, all sort of fingers pointing at him. Can he step up again? And then with Kyler, I mean, look, Arizona doesn't get a lot of national media coverage or whatever. Kyler was not injured last year. He was flat out just benched after game 5. They just said, we've had enough of this, right? And they had a massive falling out, and there was a myriad of things, right? Okay, this is really going to be interesting because you've got half the fan base who've been in Arizona for years saying, "Oh, it's the team around him, blah blah blah. The organization's a failure, and all these kind of things." Right? Okay. And for me, I thought our offensive coordinator last year was one of the worst people in existence. But this is it for him. Like, this really is a make or break year for him. If he can't get it done in Minnesota, which by all intents and purposes, it looks like he's going to be given the starting role, I think that's probably it for him within the league, to be honest with you.
I think he'll find a job somewhere. I think certainly as a starter, I think it will be up. But I think someone would find a way for him to be their backup. And yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think you start Drake May, you bench Stroud, and you cut Murray. I mean, Stroud. I mean that's probably the worst playoff performance I've seen in a while. That
it's
one
really bad.
It was so bad. I mean, the defense did all they could in both. Obviously they won the game against the Steelers, but then that game against the Patriots, they did all they could. They stifled the Patriots, and I think Will Anderson for me is an absolute beast. And I think I think that performance deserved to win that game from Will Anderson. It was so good, but Stroud just let him down. And I think it all stems back to that game against the Bears where Stroud was trying to give Caleb.
Oh, with Caleb, yeah, I know. It's so bad looking back on it. It's awful.
Like at the time, you think, fair enough, Stroud came off a really good year, playoffs and all that, but then
it's awful just looking at it.
Since. It's horrendous.
Terrible.
And Caleb sort of was, he's gone up one way. They're calling it the Amber Rose curse. Have you heard about this?
No.
So he had his rookie year.
Oh, he started dating. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And then ever since then, his just career's been terrible.
Oh my goodness. Oh. These curses, geez.
I was big on Stroud after that rookie year, but I'm finding it harder and harder to defend him.
It was the same. I think like the only other thing with him is like, and it's kind of sort of McCarthy-esque, is like, it shouldn't be the case, but it just is. Like, if you're less likable, like, you just are going to fall out of favor quicker, unfortunately, with it. Like, poor bloody. Let's go back to Arizona again, but Carson Beck hasn't even taken a snap in the league, and people don't like him just because of how he looks. Like, he looks like Sid the Sloth, and people think he looks like a douchebag, and it's like, that's fair. Like, that's all true, but like, at least let the kid throw his first ball before saying anything. I say kid, he's like 26, but. That is unfortunately the case with CJ's the stuff like that, and just the way he sort of acts, and like, and it's tough. Like, imagine throwing like, what was it, your fourth interception, or your fourth turnover, I should say, in that playoff game, and you come off to the sideline and you're trying to like rally the team or whatever, and you sort of like, what are you talking about? We're doing our job, mate.
Oh God! I mean, the thing is, like, I can see how it happens because I think a quarterback is a leader, and they have to. So I think if they're not likable, then it is going to make it harder for them to perform well. I mean, look at Russell Wilson got a bit of slack in Denver. Look at Bo Callahan before the draft. No one went to his birthday party. There's many quarterbacks where they don't have any success, or they have no success, and you can bring it back to the guy who's not rallying around him, and there's other quarterbacks who are on the other side of things where maybe they are liked and are well respected, and the team will rally around them. So, yeah, it's a weird one with Stroud. I think I've seen stuff of him to think he can turn it round, but I think if last season carries on this year, I think they'll be looking for a quarterback. I think he's on.
I don't know about that. I think the contract negotiation will play a massive part in it, but
I don't know. I just think. The team they got right now, they got a great head coach. I think Ryan's done a great job.
Yeah, incredible.
Defense. They're going to be thinking, right,
that's a big change, though. That is a massive change.
But then the Rams did it with Jared Goff, and look what happened. They won a Super Bowl. Not that they're not going to get someone like Matthew Stafford, but sometimes I don't know. I think he can turn it around, but I think if it does count, I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility to.
But this is the thing, though. This is the thing, right? He doesn't even have to turn into an MVP level guy. He doesn't have to be a Stafford, right? Okay, he just has to not be 4 turnovers in the playoff bad, because the rest of the team is that good. He just needs to be Brock Purdy, basically.
Yeah. Maybe they'll do a swap. Maybe get Brock Purdy in Houston, and I would love that. That'd be such a interesting scenario. Right, let's go on to our next 3. So we've still got some most of the big names are gone, if I'm honest. The best quarterback left is probably Justin Herbert. But we have the 4-time MVP, Aaron Rodgers, out of the darkness retreat to do this list, and he is first off the board. Of course, his last season in the NFL, he'll be officially retiring after 2026. And for those of you that want to go to Paris, he'll be at that Paris game. Dak Prescott is the next quarterback off the list. So we've got Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott. Let's spin the wheel one more time for the last quarterback. Interesting. If you get Jalen Hurts, that'll be really interesting. We don't know. We get Cam Ward. So we've got Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, and Cam Ward. Now, I think a couple of years ago, I think it'd been a lot tighter between Dak and Rodgers. I think you think about the early 2020s, I think that would have been a really tough debate. Or maybe not even tough. Maybe it would have been in Rodgers' favour. But now I think it's gone the other way. I think I start Dak, I bench Rodgers, and I cut Cam Ward.
I honestly, though, I think that the bigger conversation there is actually between Rodgers and like Cam Ward, to be honest with you. Like, I think you could make the case that Rodgers really is being sort of pulled along at this point, like some sort of cadaver being thrown out onto the pitch and expected to do something. So honestly, for me, like Dak has been really under appreciated in the league the last couple of years, what he's been doing. So obviously start Dak. I'm probably actually going to bench Cam, and I'd probably cut Rodgers, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Because I will say, it's a bit of a weekend at Bernie situation with Rodgers. I mean, it is like you said, they're dragging him out, but he had single-digit interceptions in 2025. He did have, 27 touchdowns, I want to say, and then like single-digit picks. So he wasn't awful in Pittsburgh, and I think that, he isn't the same quarterback. And I think that's part of the problem, is that compared to what he's done in the league, 4 MVP, Super Bowl, probably the most talented quarterback I think I've seen.
Yeah, I think you could argue that, yeah. Like, even when Brady was around, I always thought that Rodgers was more talented, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brady obviously had better greatness and was more clutch. But I do think, if that season he had was a rookie year or even a sophomore year for, let's say, who can I think? Like Cam Ward. If Cam Ward had that season, you think, oh my God, this guy's amazing. But I just think Rodgers is almost a victim of his own success. I think he's a victim of these multiple MVP seasons, great years, Hail Marys against the Lions. I think Rodgers is still fine. I think he's still a fine quarterback. But obviously, he's not the quarterback he once was.
No, I agree, completely agree. And obviously, this is like his last hurrah. I don't think Pittsburgh are going to win the Super Bowl, so I don't really see the point of it. But I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's interesting one. I think McCarthy. I thought they fell out. I thought McCarthy and Rodgers fell out in Green Bay. I could be wrong now. I thought I can be sure that I'm sure there was a thing about them falling out in Green Bay, which is why he got fired. I could be wrong on that.
No, I think there was some issues there.
Interesting how they work out together in Pittsburgh for one last ride. Right, let's spin the wheel of our last set of quarterbacks. We've got 3 rounds left. First up is Mr. Instagram post. We've got Jalen Hurts as our first quarterback off the list. He's always a really interesting one to debate. He's always one that splits opinion. Jalen Daniels. So we've got the 2 quarterbacks from the 2024 season's NFC Championship game. Who is our last quarterback going to be? Let's spin that wheel. So interesting if... we've got Justin Herbert. That's a good trio. We've got Jalen Hurts, Jalen Daniels, Justin Herbert. That's a good trio.
So for me, it's Justin Herbert's start, it's Jaden Daniels bench, and it's Jalen Hurts cut. I've never been a fan of Jalen Hurts personally. I think he's another sort of Brock Purdy-esque. He's been surrounded by this super team in Philadelphia for so long, and he's just not that good. Like, he just is not that good. The defense carries, the offensive line is ridiculous, the receiving talent, Barkley, everything. Like, you could put anyone there and they'd have, good years and stuff. And I think he's probably held them back from a Super Bowl or 2. is honestly what I think. Like, I think that year they won the Super Bowl, it was like, well done, okay, whatever. You know, but the team like should have had like a couple more. That is the reality of it. You know, like he obviously going against the Chiefs where they lost one of them. Like, if Hurts is not your QB, do they win that game? Like, if someone like Herbert is, they probably do, or even Bo Nix.
That's harsh because Hurts, apart from the fumble which they scored the touchdown from, albeit that won the Chiefs the game, he was amazing in that game. He didn't put a foot wrong apart from that one play where he fumbled.
But I think it's the talent around him though more than anything. Like the things they can do in the run game and stuff. And like I get it, but just for me, like I just don't rate him as a QB personally. I think he's far more of like a college style QB still. You know, every snap they take is bloody from shotgun, and then they just have the tush push, which has carried them so far. It's ridiculous. Jalen Daniels obviously sort of fallen off a little bit from his insane rookie year, but he's obviously very talented. I think he's probably more of a quarterback than Jalen Hurts is. And then Justin Herbert's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Herbert for me was an easy start. I mean, having said that, he seems to have crumbled a lot in the playoffs, but the talent he's got is undeniable. And I think that's an easy start. But where it gets interesting is now we've got the two Jadens, of course. Not Jaden. It's Jaden, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it's tough because he's only had one good year, Daniels. Now, albeit he's only been in the league 2 seasons, and he was amazing in that rookie year. I just think I do like Hurts. I do like Hurts. I do think that even though he's had this talent around him. Brock Purdy's had that, and he's not made a Super Bowl. Well, he's made 1 Super Bowl. But Hurts has made 2 Super Bowls as a starter. I think that deserves some credit. Because I think you can have the argument of, he had a good team around him, but then a lot of players do and they don't make it. I mean, Matt Ryan had Julio Jones, had a defense that was 20-3 up, and they couldn't get the job done in that Super Bowl. So I think I do get the argument about players who are carried by teams, but I think also you still need your quarterback to put in the performance. I think, so I think the fact he's gone to 2 Super Bowls, multiple, or playoffs every year since he started, I think. I don't know. I just think I would probably bench Hurts and cut Daniels, I think, just because I've seen.
I think that's the conversation, isn't it? But just my personal opinion, just think Jalen Daniels is a better QB than Jalen Hurts is.
Yeah, I get that. I do think if this was Hurts, Herbert, and maybe someone like Dak Prescott, or even Caleb Williams, I maybe would consider, a cut from. But then that would conjugate my Daniels thing of having only 1 good year. So I don't know, but I certainly think Herbert's a start, and I think you can flip round Hurts and Daniels. But I just think, I can't deny the fact he's got them to 2 Super Bowls, which not many quarterbacks can say they've done. We'll move on now to our penultimate round. We've got 6 quarterbacks left. Still got a Super Bowl champion, still got a Super Bowl runner-up. And here is a Super Bowl champion. We've got Sam Darnold, first off the board, just a few months after winning Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco. Well, next up, we have a man that we talked a lot about in the last offseason on social media. Geno Smith is the next quarterback off the list. I wonder if that guy, how he feels now about Geno Smith after that, 12 months later after this Twitter chat we had with him. I do wonder how he feels about him now. And then final one, we still have McCarthy, who is our 33rd quarterback, but we do instead get Daniel Jones. So we have Darnold, Geno Smith, and Daniel Jones. I think, again, that might be pretty easy. I think you start Darnold, you bench Daniel Jones, and you cut Geno Smith.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, look, Geno is out the league, basically, after this year, realistically. What Darnold's done over in Seattle is credit to him. And, obviously, very good team around him, but he has elevated people around him as well. And then the Daniel Jones thing is really interesting. If he doesn't get hurt, what happens to the rest of their year? is a really interesting conversation. And again, another revival. I think like this whole first round QB going on to their second contract, from a failing organization going to a different organization is a massive thing nowadays. Real resurgence in it, and certainly if you get like guys on a cheap deal, like if you're someone picking in the mid to the later round of the draft, you can't get one of these upper echelon QBs at the top of the end of the draft. Something like next year. Do you take a flyer on, someone who's washed out of their old place, which is fair.
Yeah, I mean, Darnold's story is incredible. I don't think he was great in that Super Bowl. I think
the defense obviously did an incredible job. Yeah, exactly.
I think this could be a controversial take. I think it could be another Brad Johnson in terms of he gets his one ring, dominant win from the defense. I don't know whether he goes back, but he'll take that. Sam Darnold will not care whether
he won't care. Yeah, he won't care. Yeah.
So I think, I think the story's amazing. I genuinely think he'll be looked back on. I think not right now, but I think certainly in 10 years' time, when, or even forever, I think there'll be people in school, in whether it's PE lessons or whether it's just or gym class they call it in America, or whether it's just lessons. I think they'll look back at his stories. He'll be used as an example for years to come of how to never give up, because his story is incredible, and I've talked about it a lot. Doubted, and then he's come back and won a Super Bowl. But I don't know whether I would have Herbert, Daniels, Dak Prescott, and Hurts all above him if they were in this thing. Because I do think
maybe not Hurts, but I agree with the rest.
The rest. I just think he did a good job, but I think everything fell in the right place.
I think he's basically, for me, he's pretty much Baker Mayfield. Like very similar stories, very similar sort of levels of talent. That's probably where he is. Yeah. I mean, the only thing you could say about him, though, however, is that he hasn't just had this 1 year wonder and won the Super Bowl. He did have a good year last year as well, which earned him the right to get that deal with Seattle. So if he keeps playing on that trajectory, who knows?
Yeah, I agree. And Daniel Jones is one that I do think. They won that game in Germany, right? Didn't win the game for the rest of the year. That's crazy to me. But
and they made all the trades as well at the end of the deadline. Don't forget that as well.
Yeah,
the Sauce Gardner as well. Yeah.
It was that week. It was literally the week of because I remember I went to the practice session. And I think it was that week where Sauce Gardner got traded, and he was there rocking up, going to Germany for his first game.
That's hilarious, isn't it? Just like it's all well and good getting like everyone hears about. Obviously, so he's getting traded, and then they're on a jet somewhere. But to go transatlantic and go to Germany is a really crazy one.
Yeah, and I do think the league did figure out the Colts before the injury. I do think they realised that if you stop Jonathan Taylor and you force Jones to throw the ball, he's not quite as effective. But he was looking really good that first.
Still like Alex Pierce and Josh Downs and like. I just think the thing with that Indy team, like where they were 7-1, like no one was really like terrified of the defense like we are when we talk about Denver and Seattle and some of these other teams who've obviously done incredible things. And then at the same time, like the offense was humming, but how much of that was JT, like you say, who knows?
Well, we have our final three quarterbacks. No need to spin the wheel. We have Michael Penix Jr., JJ McCarthy, and Jared Goff. Ollie.
Poor Jared even having to be in the same room as those guys. So Jared's obviously the starter. Interesting sort of an up-down year for him as well, like realistically. And I think like it's a really crucial season for Detroit. Like they're either going to be back into the playoff mix, or they're probably just going to completely fall off a cliff realistically with where they are. Some of the age of the talent as well that they've got. It'd be really interesting to see what happens on that. Got Hutchinson coming back, which helps. Gibbs is a good star. Ron Brown. But I think it is a bit of a hit or miss year, and certainly for someone like Jared as well, actually. For me, like Jared Goff is like, again, very similar to a Baker Mayfield and a Sam Darnold, essentially. Like, good situation, all these kind of things. Are they necessarily like a game changer for you? And then, God, McCarthy and Penix, cut them both. Just forget about the bench. Awful, just awful stuff there. Yeah. If I had to say lesser of two evils, like I guess bench Penix and get rid of McCarthy, cast him aside.
Oh, it's probably saved the worst to last. I mean,
He's a Michigan man as well, McCarthy. So not big fans in this household.
I mean, you've got for me, same as you. Start Goff, bench Penix Jr. and cut McCarthy. But that is poor. And I do think the Lions can get back just because of their schedule is easier because they're finishing fourth the year before. Yeah. But I think at the time when they lost to the Niners in that NFC Championship where they were leading by miles in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell was saying that might be our best chance, and I kind of agree. I think Goff, for me, I don't think he's a guy that wins you Super Bowls. I think he can win. A bit like Darnold. Darnold wasn't the main reason why they won it, but he was a good component. I think if they do win a Super Bowl, it'll be because of Hutchinson, because of Gibbs, St. Brown, the O-line. I think in terms of Detroit's most valuable assets, I think Penei Sewell, St. Brown, Gibbs are all.
They lost Ragnow as well this year. Don't forget that to retirement.
So I think again the fact that McVay trades him away and then within a year they've won a Super Bowl without him, I think also speaks volumes. So I'm not particularly Goff's biggest fan. I think he's great for a regular season. I think he can win you in that Lions team 11, 12 games, and I think
his ceiling is that championship game. I don't think he gets you to a Super Bowl. I think his ceiling is he gets knocked out of the championship game. And whether he can consistently do that or not is a different thing as well. But I'd be interested to see Bears rising in that division. Packers are the Packers. Vikings, sort of the wild card this year with Kyler, obviously. It'd be interesting.
Fair enough. You mentioned Michigan. I thought your girlfriend's family were from Michigan.
They are, but not University of Michigan, Michigan State family.
Oh, Michigan State. Oh my God. Have they ever talked to you about? I'm guessing they were watching it when there's a famous play between Michigan and Michigan State
the punt. Yeah.
And like final moments of the game are incredible. Yeah. Do they talk about that much, that game?
Yeah. So they're all like Michigan State alumni as well. The family, yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
We went last summer. We watched them versus Western Michigan, which was pretty cool.
Who won that game? I'm guessing it was Michigan State.
Michigan State. Yeah. Beat them. Yeah.
Well, fair enough. That is the end of our list, and we will put on socials all of our start bench cut rounds. But Ollie, first of all, thank you for coming on.
No, thanks for having me. Always good to talk football, mate.
Yeah, likewise, and we'll sure get you on in the future. We will be doing our season previews once again this summer. So expect whether it's Dolphins or Cardinals, expect the height of positivity in these episodes.
It'll be a tough watch.
But there is hopefully light at the end of the tunnel. In the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I have been, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, with our guest today in Ollie Kent. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.